Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow-Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership and business from the inside out. And this is part 2 of a conversation that I am having with Dmitry Koltunov. Welcome back to the show, Dmitry. It's good to have you back.
I'm happy for my monthly residency.
Yeah, actually, it was a month ago.
It was exactly a month ago. I
Yeah,
looked at it.
totally. I know. It's good timing. Hey, it seems like that's the theme of my podcast this year. I have like part 2s, and I'm actually really enjoying the part 2 because in part 1, we talked about everything in terms of life, leadership and business. And then we got to the very end of the podcast, and then we started talking about drumroll, Arbor, where you've got your brand going on, which I absolutely love. And we didn't even say Arbor except when I introduced you as the founder and CEO of Arbor. And then I was like, we need another conversation around
What do you
content,
do?
storytelling. What do you do? And you said I would quite enjoy the story. So I'm going to let you tell us
Yeah.
off you go.
Yeah. So Arbor's tagline is authentic content at an enterprise scale. And the way that we got here was a very unexpected kind of long road, one that is pretty maybe common with startups, but as a founder, you never want to believe that you're going to have to pivot.
Yeah, I
And
know.
so a friend of mine is a prolific investor, says that when I invest in you, the only thing I know for sure is that the product I'm investing in now is not going to be the product that is going to be in a few years. And I
Yeah.
remember talking to him when I started the first version of Arbor, which was a family history production company.
Really?
And I was like, it's not going to be us though. He's like, okay, talk to me in a year. Yeah. So Arbor actually started as a family history platform. We wanted
Really?
to capture stories from families that were going untold. And this was before really the era of AI was really prevalent. I mean, people were messing around with it, but it wasn't in everyday conversation. And we set out to create this marketplace of people who can connect with the loved ones who have stories to tell, and these journalists would help you tell your story, and then you would get this documentary about your father's life or grandfather's
Oh, I love
life. Yeah, it was all about like capturing the authentic perspective of people. And we did that for a bit, and we did over 1,000 stories. And one of the things that we saw in the process was it was a super important thing that people wanted to do tomorrow. And it was really hard. Like sometimes we would be like convincing people who bought the thing to do it. It's like, well,
Yeah.
this is it's such an odd conversation to have
Yeah.
when you put the money down. But what we found, there's so much anxiety in people
What way?
telling their story.
What?
People being final about this, is like, is this the way I want my life represented? What is
Wow.
an experience that I want to share? How do I look on camera? There were so many things totally unexpected. And in the process of doing these, the other unexpected thing for me, and I didn't come from a video background, was how hard it was to produce video.
Oh my
So we would
gosh.
have these incredible stories, and then there would be some images sent to us to help support it. And then we need to make an image change. And I'd go to an editor and they'd say, great, I'll give it back to you in a few hours. I'm like, what? Just change one image. Like, I know, well, I got to download the video. I have to then set up my project. I have to put it in, then I have to render it. Then I have to get into the format for our platform. Like 1 or 2 hours. And just, it didn't make sense to me as a builder. So I have 20 years of enterprise software, went to school for computer science. And my whole thing is to build expert tool for expert users. And I just have a nose for inefficiency. I'm like, what is happening here? That should not take a few hours. And
We were so
so
meant to chat today. I swear, we were so meant to have a conversation around this.
say more. Why?
Just the things you're calling out in terms of inefficiencies and without shitting on, like editing or anything like that and the time it takes. It's just
Yeah,
if
and
you're someone like me who spots inefficiencies, it's very obvious quickly now, more than ever.
yes, yes, yes. So I'm starting to talk to the editors who are incredible professionals, and they're fast at what they do, but it's not that they didn't know how to get something done or it was complex, just the tools weren't allowing them to have the speed. So we wound up building the first version of Arbor was a combination of comping videos with images. And right as we were doing that, there was a huge growth and that the breakthrough of AI. And so we started to say, well, what if we built a video editor that was AI native? How would that come together? And so we spent a bunch of time working with our editors, learning how they put together videos, what decisions they made. And rather than making a general purpose video editor, we really made one around the human story being told. And so now we're 1,000 stories in, and we're seeing that it's just really hard to get people to tell their life story. But we also noticed that nonprofits were really invested in storytelling. That is how they raised all of their money, right? By showing you the impact that they were making on all the people that they were looking to help as a part of their mission. I've been in nonprofit world for a while. I run a nonprofit in New York, helping founders
Yeah, you
learn how to
mentioned it
start
last time.
companies. And so, like, I love giving back. Arbor is actually a public benefit corporation. So we wanted to do something in that space. So we started working with a lot of nonprofits. We wound up working with some of the biggest nonprofits in the world. Like, you know them. It was an incredible opportunity here. Like, within the first few weeks, we're working with like Teach for America and all, et cetera. And so we wound up finding that there was a significant demand for storytelling. And beyond that story, what you also needed to do was create all the assets around it. And that was another unlock, because when you're building stories for people, you just needed the video to find a long video. But when you are building stories for organizations, you have cut downs, you then need quotes, you might write an article about it. Maybe you'll do something for a newsletter, you write an email. So there's all of these ways to take the same story and transform it into different assets. And then actually you might tell the same story differently depending on your audience or depending on your goal.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that AI is really, really good at. And so we started developing this platform that allowed you to take a long piece of content on video and turn it into all these other pieces of content based on targeting an audience or targeting a goal, identifying the speakers, figuring out their voice, using everything around ghostwriting for them, et cetera. And this really unexpected thing happened. We would go and we'd pitch our service. We'd say, okay, so when you work with Arbor, you're going to have this marketplace of journalists. They're going to interview people that you've had an impact on. And then when that's done, then we are going to put it through our platform and we're going to do all this asset creation using AI. And people would literally stop our demo and say, well, what's that? Well, that's our platform. Can we use just that? I'm like, no, you have to get the journalism and then you can use it after.
Yeah.
So this, we're talking about for months. I'm getting the same kind of thing because I'm like, no, this time I know exactly what it's going to be. And at some point, I think my team had an intervention with me and they were like, I think what the people are saying is they just want to buy the tech. And I sat with that for a bit. It's like, all right, fine. Maybe they just want to buy the tech. So we started to turn. This is at the beginning of last year. We said, all right, let's see what would happen if we were started to sell this as as just a SaaS offering. And at that point, we had built AI into all these decision points, and it was just this incredible platform. And we had more customers within the first 2 months than we did in 2 years. It was just
Wow.
like a significantly different growth trajectory. And then in the process of doing this, I realized like why the nonprofit sector was taking to this in such an interesting way. And it's because it requires communication.
Mm.
Like comms is such an essential part of the nonprofit sector. And it's not an essential part of the for-profit sector until you get to a certain size.
Yeah.
But if you have a nonprofit and it's got 10 people, you better believe one of them is in comms. You have a
Mm.
startup and you have 50 people, there's nobody in comms. 100 people, potentially nobody in comms. But once you get to 1,000 plus, then you have people whose job it is to get the message out.
Yeah.
What we wound up seeing is that in building this tool for comms people to get the message out, we had actually built something really powerful for large enterprises as well. And we were just talking that today we launched this really large company that we've been talking to for close to a year, and it's been super exciting to see them finally experience the platform. But that was a long discovery that what we had built was a tool for communicators.
Mm.
And well, what we saw that was really fascinating in the world of communicators is that there's forces that are completely changing the job.
Yes.
So if you
Agree.
have, you have this explosion of content. We've never had before a need to produce content from the business side. And we're not even talking about consumer businesses. This is B2B. This is
Mm.
businesses that everything from healthcare to financial services, insurance, like these are companies that have complex product offerings, consulting, and now they need to create content. At the same time, like AI maturity is coming in, but there's still a capacity gap. The people whose job it is to message are strategists, they're writers, they're storytellers, but they're not video editors.
No.
And
And it's
so,
a real sorry to pause on that for a second. It's a real art, even like I think about from the way I'm playing with my podcast and I'm pulling out stories from every conversation and
yes,
it's
yes,
takes time. And so people are like, "Why? I want it now. I want it now." And it's like, no, it's not just to hit it, like
it's
bash it out straight away. There's like this interconnection of stories. So it's just a story being told throughout the whole lot takes time, and as one person you can't like it's just so there's this need to have something, a system or a platform.
you need an assistant, right? And then the thing is, especially if you deeply understand your brand,
Yes.
you have a particular way that you want stories to be told. You have particular stories that you want to capture. And the tools that are out there have been made for podcasters. They've been made for people that want to go viral on TikTok. And like that's super big as an industry, but I felt that the communicators were really being ignored in terms of tooling. And that's really the space that we found exciting to play at. Again, I love building expert systems for expert users, and the people on the communicator side were really insightful about how stories land for an organization. They knew exactly the stories that they wanted to tell. They just had a capacity gap. They were
Yeah.
not video people. And
Yeah.
so this is a really interesting opportunity. And then the other thing that we found was that anytime you have a message, that message has a decay. So if something important happened in the company and I tell it to you 6 months later, I've kind of missed the mark. What about 3 months later? What about a month later? What about a week? Like, when is that decay? It's probably somewhere within a few days, maybe a few weeks, but that's actually not how the capacity gap is working. So, in the communicators world right now, we just talked to a company today, and they said that if they want to get particular clips from a video that they shot, it takes them 6 weeks.
Like, is that from using an external company or
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Even the same people that made the original video for them, if they go back and they say, I want these sections to highlight a particular messaging, 6 weeks. Why? I mean, I've worked with a lot of editors. I'll tell you, the one thing that they can all agree on is they hate making clips.
yeah.
They'll make the original video because that's an artistic expression and it's really exciting
With
for them.
cut downs. We used to call them cut
Yeah.
downs back in the day.
But nobody's like, raising their hand to do cut downs and then reformatting them for tall specs or square specs, etc. And because it's machine work. And so you should let machines do machine work and humans
Do
do
the human
the
work.
human
Yeah,
work,
I agree.
right? And the human work is understanding what story needs to be told and then making sure that story is told at the end. And so
I love that. I love that connection though, that what you've just really called out, because I think that it's like the machine spots the patterns. So the machine can spot the clips and can pull out the various patterns from the long form video, if you like. This is how I'm kind of thinking about it, right? And you might go, no, B, absolutely not.
no, it's
It's
exactly right.
it's a human bit that puts the meaning behind the story, is able to put it all together. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, have that overarching. And I think it's
Yes. And it's also the human that has the vision. And I've been consistently surprised by how different my understanding of good is to a person who's on the inside of a company. I can watch a video and say, this is amazing. And I'll show it to a person who runs the Marcoms team, and they'll be like, nah, this is terrible. And I can't logically explain it to you, but when they explain it to me, it totally makes sense from the inside or from their perspective. For instance, we're working with a healthcare company and they were interviewing doctors. And when I was showing them clips that I thought were interesting, they found them utterly disinteresting. And they said, no, the thing that we need to see is when a doctor says, I never knew that this particular thing could be possible. And now when I use this product, I realize that I can do my practice in a brand new way. And what they do is they look for that soundbite told through different perspectives whenever they build content, because that is the thesis that they have, that if you change how a doctor is able to diagnose, then they could actually approach healing in a completely different way. And I remember that because I actually think that we change how a communicator communicates, which allows them to think about communicating in a different way.
in a better way, a more authentic, a more creative, a more
Yeah.
engaging, enhancing way. I have a question for you on all of this, because you called out
Yes.
before there's like always been a content tool for podcasters, I guess, dare I say it, influencers, etc. And then
Correct.
there's been this gap for communicators. I also am seeing, though, that there's a gap even from a podcaster perspective and from an influencer perspective, because at the end of the day, we're communicators, right? Like, I mean, I don't do podcasting full time. It's part of what I, do within my business. But if you look at the total ecosystem of what you do, or as, whether it's an entrepreneur or whether you're in a big enterprise or a small business, it's all communication at the end of the day. So it's almost like becoming
Totally.
too narrow, that lens to put on it. And then
Yeah.
the other thing to add to this is the intention economy. Like, everything needs to be intentional these days. And what you're talking about here is very intentional. It's intentional how you communicate. Do you know where I'm going? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think intentional is the actual word for it. I think that is really the gap. When I looked at the landscape of tools that were being created, they were highly opinionated and optimized towards virality.
Yeah, right.
And the folks that we were working with weren't trying to go viral in the same way. They had a perspective of a story they wanted to tell. I remember speaking to a financial institution and asking them, okay, so what is success for you? And they say, we're happy if 100 people see this video, as long as it's the right 100 people. Why? They were doing investment banking. They were trying to get a
The right
$500
audience.
million deal.
Yeah.
Having a bunch of 23-year-olds in business school isn't going to do that for them.
Yeah.
And so once you know your audience, once you have your goals clear, then the content that you create is very specific, and it may not be virality inducing from the generic perspective. So really what we started to see is that, have you ever heard of the 10-80-10 principle?
The 10-80-10. I've heard of the
Yeah.
80-20-10 rule.
Yeah.
Same thing?
So it's a spin on the 80-20. So
Okay, cool,
so
cool, cool. Got it. Yeah.
so I think most AI tools are built with this idea of 80-20, where it's like, I'm going to do 20% of the work, I'm going to delegate 80%, and it's going to go awesome. And when you do that with AI tools, you're very likely to get super disappointed because it's not reading your mind. So the alternative is to do 10-80-10. 10-80-10 is you spend the first 10% ideating and planning what you want to say, who you want to say it to, and what your source material is. Then you give the next 80% to AI, and it will quickly find the thing that you intended. It'll deliver to you something that is a strong draft, and you take over the next 10% and you get it to a space that represents exactly your brand, your intention, your voice. So what you're doing is not human in the loop, it's AI in the loop, right?
Yeah, I love
You're a human on the front, you're a human on the back, right? And this has been happening forever. So this is how Andy Warhol scaled, right? Andy Warhol had a factory of these incredible artists. He would come up with the idea, he would delegate to the factory, and when every piece was done, Warhol would come back and do the last 10%.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't heard that 10-80-10 rule. It makes, I shouldn't call it, what do you call it? You don't call it a rule. It's just the 10-80-10.
Rule, yeah. You call it whatever. It's yours now.
Well, the
Take it.
principle, no, I really like it. And I actually relate to it because I do apply myself in that way in terms of, especially with how I use AI. I think about it. I don't just give AI at all and go, give
Yes.
me the story, because it's never going to give you the story, the story that you're looking for. It needs, and so then you think about it, you ideate around it, you then prompt feed, and then you take it back and you go, okay,
Yeah,
now I'm going to play with
that's
this
right.
again. That's exactly how I do it. Yeah. Yeah. So
And
it's
the
good to
thing,
know.
absolutely, and I have like an entire other secret life as a theater writer. And the thing that theater taught me is that what you see on the page is not what you feel on the stage. And
Yeah.
so when you read a transcript, it's not the same as seeing the thing. Now, when you have to wait 6 weeks or 4 weeks to get something done, you are not iterating very much. You are not learning very much. You're just hoping and praying that the thing that you get back is good enough for you to move forward with. But when what you can take this customer that we're talking to, we took 6 weeks down to 10, 15 minutes. So now like, oh, wait, we can actually have 4 variations
Yeah.
and see which one
Choice.
lands better, right? I'm watching the thing happening on the stage rather than trying to read it on the page. And I'm experiencing the emotions while seeing these options. And then I'm making a decision. And actually, if I don't know which the right decision is, maybe I put all of them out and I see which one people respond to more.
Yeah.
And so like, I think AI gives us this superpower of unapologetic iteration. Because if you've ever worked with a creative team, you know that you have a few iterations in you. And once you go beyond those iterations, you're driving people nuts.
Oh yeah, they hate
And so
you. Well,
it's,
I worked in, obviously from my background's in creative industry, and I was this, the suit, dare I say it, like my background was client experience. I shouldn't say suit. And working with creatives, like coming back to
like,
thinking about the story and the
how
intuition.
many iterations do you think you could get before people started to buy voodoo dolls of you?
Oh, 2, 3 max.
2.
And then I would
2 to 3,
yeah, yeah. And
right?
be like,
And sometimes you don't get it.
that's not a creative, you're not listening, you wouldn't know. And I'm like, well, I think I am listening because I'm directly talking with the client and I'm seeing, I always think about it from a consumer lens. When it comes to communication, you called something out really important, well, we both talked about intention. I think from a communication perspective, it's know your audience, know what your audience, like we can quite often come in with, this is what we think. And I do it. I do it myself. Like you'll think this is what they want. And it's like even
You know?
how Arbor came about in terms of where you started. And then you had to have an intervention with your team because you were probably just so
No,
like,
they have to have an intervention with me.
yeah, that's right. Sorry. That's right. Yeah, your team had an intervention with you because you were so blinkered. And it's like, look around. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. It's there's there's a term that's in the startup world being used, is called the latent demand. Horace
Yeah.
Cherney from Claude uses this a lot, which is basically you start to see how people respond to your product and you let them lead you.
Yeah.
So rather than coming in and being like, I'm super opinionated as this, you find the space to actually listen and you collaborate. Really, it becomes almost this partnership with your early customers because you design this world together. And so yeah, it's super interesting to see how a tool that accelerates the creation of something can change how people apply the creation to their day to day, right? If it's fast for me to create a version, maybe I create multiple versions and learn through the interaction that I get with my audience which one is best, rather than do it all in my head because I have 3 revisions and I don't want to push beyond that.
No.
So go ahead, go ahead.
No, you go. You go. Keep going.
No, it's like I love studying the history of creation, because I think innovation's been happening since we've discovered fire, and there's all these moments when the things that we're doing felt surreal. And even studying like Adobe's history is super interesting because they came in during a time where the only way to get something printed was you had to have a typesetter, which is a person like that. Like we see typesets now as like a drop down, but that was an individual's role. And they designed the PostScript to actually standardize how you communicate types. Eventually, Apple would come out with a way for you to print PostScript, so you can now have an entire home publishing industries being born. But what they did was they looked at these roles that were owned by individuals
Mm.
that constrained a certain level of iteration.
Yeah.
You have to work through those people only. Now, typesetters still exist. It's not that the profession went away, but the amount of publishing that's happening now versus before is eclipsed, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens when you remove barriers is you just grow adoption at this massive pace, and you allow people that have an opinion to do the thing. So if I have an opinion, I don't need to go to a typesetter. I can just go on any tool and select my type
Yeah.
and just write a
Absolutely.
story and it's done, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to. And right now, video is that thing. And so you have these incredible storytellers in the communicators, and they know exactly what they want to say, and they can respond to options, but the act of getting those options
It's
is
way more
weeks.
efficient.
So what we want to do is we want to let them take that number down to minutes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And keep it and still continue to keep the authentic content.
Of
That's
course,
my
because
whole
that's the 80. That's the middle,
yeah,
right?
that is cool. And it's so interesting because, like you only have to go on to the likes of LinkedIn and I'm so hit or miss at the moment. 1 minute I'm on, next minute I'm not. Because I go on and I look at everything and I'm like, oh, so beige, so like inauthentic, I'm
You
just like,
can read, you can tell now that like
yeah,
that was written by AI. At this point, whenever I read the word that hits different, I'm like, no one actually says that. Like
no.
that's
Not
like not a
this, not
phrase.
that, these short sentences,
It's
except
this,
that.
but it's not that. I'm like everyone's trying to be a semi-TED speaker, and so actually, like when I have AI write for me, I do the 10-80-10. I will first speak, so I will say lots of things.
Yeah,
AI will give me a streamlined take of it, and then I'll go back and I'll adjust it. And for a while, it was trying to get me into that punchy like sentences, like it's this, it's not that. It's like this sounds awful, and I don't speak like this. And so, like now, my prompt is just keep my approach to speaking. You can remove things, you can edit it, but don't give me the ChatGPT special, right? Like and ChatGPT can actually follow your instructions if you give it those instructions to not change it.
Totally. Yeah, I had the same battle with Claude. I was having the same conversation with Claude last night about something that I was iterating on, and I was like, we finally got there. And do you know what I did? I did the test between Chat and Claude, and just to see how much similarity was coming through. And I was like,
Which
there you
one do you
go.
like better?
Well, I mean, I'm in Claude at the moment. It just feels a lot more, well, maybe because it's newer, it's fresher. I don't know. It just feels like
Yeah,
when I was talking to you the other day, it feels like it's got a bit more female energy about it, like in terms of it's
interesting.
a little bit more intuitive. It feels like and yet last night I got stuck on a few things, and I think then it comes down to I wasn't prompting it properly. I was a little bit tired. I was just like, and then once
Well,
it started feeding stuff to me, back to this 1080. We were in the 80 for a while.
we were in the
We were
80 for a
dancing
while.
between the 10 and the 80, and then I finally got to the 10. I was like, yeah, we're here, you know. I guess for me though,
This stuff is
yeah, you go, sorry.
it's just like this stuff is really hard because
Isn't
what
it?
goes unsaid when people work with AI is there's no such thing as Claude. What you have is Opus 4.4.6. There's no such
Totally.
thing as chat. It's GPT-5.2, GPT-4o, GPT-5.4, and we're in the business of understanding each model. And what
Yeah.
happens is the same instructions that you apply to one model don't work in the same way when you apply it to a second model. And so for the people in the industry, the way that we do this, it's called evals, right? Where we run a prompt against one model, see what it produces. And then we run that prompt against the next generation model and see if it produces the same quality output. And if not, we have to tune our prompts.
Yeah,
And so
right. What did you call
I
it?
will,
What did you call it?
it's called evaluations. So you
Evaluate.
evaluate the way that a prompt produces an output considering the same input, right? So as new model versions come out, you say, do these instructions still make sense? And the answer is often they don't. I remember speaking to a communicator in a large organization, and she said, hey, did you notice that chat just got super verbose? And yeah, like when you went from I think like 4.0 to 5.2, it got like bloated.
Yeah, it was so
We added like
arrogant. You had to go on me one.
40% more words. It was like someone that just got a master's degree and they want to show you exactly what they learned in every class. Like, let me tell you every word. You give the same instruction to 4.0 as 5.2 or 5.4, and you will not get the same answer.
Response, yeah.
And so that's one of the troubles that we've heard from people in comms, that even if you learn the models, even if you build your skills, as soon as the models go to the next generation, all your things can break.
Yeah.
So now you spend all this time building a system that is actually quite brittle because there's no way for it to be tested against every new version.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that we wound up really thinking through, which is how do we build resilient prompting
Oh, I like that.
so that as the versions change, you maintain or improve the quality of your output.
That's interesting. So I've got a couple of questions for you, and then I'll let you get then to your.
Absolutely.
I know you are a night owl, and I know we could keep talking. What do you like with for the listeners and everyone and the audience here in terms of communication? It feels like we're at a bit of a crossroads in terms of like we've just been talking about the vanilla beigeness of AI doing all the communication. And yet then there's this other opportunity which you've created with Arbor where it's authentic content and it's at scale. So you're leveraging the AI for the efficiency purposes and doing the 1080. Where do you think communication is heading? Like in terms of, do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better? Like in terms of, are we going to go full circle and, get back to really authentic content? Or do you think it's going to be like two extremes?
I'm really optimistic. First, I think the synthetic content across the board, whether it's fake video or fake writing. And specifically, it's stuff that is not grounded in a perspective. We just say, write me something on this topic. It's really cool in the beginning. And then we start spotting it and we have an allergic reaction to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember when the Studio Ghibli came out and ChatGPT was able to create these really cool cartoons. For a good month, it was amazing. And now if you put something out that looks like that, it just feels dated. It feels like you're lacking originality. So
Yeah.
all these things are trends, and trends get stale fast.
Yeah.
Now, what is exciting for me is I'm seeing a reconnection with the authentic in the communication styles.
I love
Today,
it.
a customer that we talked to said, you know what, I wish our agencies would do something less produced. And we're seeing that the answer to inauthenticity is less production.
Yeah,
It
great.
is the real. And so that's happening across a couple of angles. One, we're seeing content that is just people speaking rather than 6 cameras and special effects. And people swipe past the special effects and stay on a person just sharing perspective. But the second thing that I think is even a bigger and more interesting trend is who we're hearing from. Because communication has really started to be at the center, every company is a communicator. We're now seeing comms come from executives, from VPs, not just from the one person who's the CEO. So you're
Yeah.
getting to know an organization through
I
the
love
voice of its micro influencers, which are the leaders.
mm.
And so we're working with an investment bank. And one of the things that they said is we look at the size of our staff as a massive asset. And we want every one of our thought leaders to really put out their perspective so
Yeah.
that their customer set understands why they want to work with us.
Yeah. It's a
So
good
how
point.
beautiful is that? And if I am one of those VPs and I put generic AI slop out there, I lose all credibility.
Yeah,
And
agree.
so I have to have an opinion. I have to have a perspective and I have to have a personality because that's what people want to see, then want to work with me. And that was never the case, right? It was fully guarded. It was everything was branding. There were only a few people speaking. Everyone was on message. It was one message towards one general audience. And now you can be on message for particular audiences. Different people can have different messages. They can have different styles. So I've actually thought over the last few years, because content has gotten so prevalent, that it's actually opened up a pathway to significantly more authenticity than we'd ever seen, especially on the business side.
Oh,
I
I
think that's
love
really
that.
exciting.
Yeah, same. I love that you're an optimist, as am I. And I always ask those sorts of questions. Second last question for you, Arbor. How did the name Arbor come about? And was Arbor the name you had with your original plan for the business?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. So
how has it evolved the branding as such to cater for what you're doing now?
I'm a fan of words that could represent lots of different things. Arbor is a Latin word for tree.
A tree,
So yeah. So it's like you could have like Arbor Day or Arboreum, right? And trees are
arborist.
such a powerful, yeah, an arborist, which we call people that use Arbor. Uh, there's such power because it would be the tree of knowledge, the tree of life. When we were doing family history, is the family tree.
Oh, I
But
love it.
this idea that from one piece can grow all these other pieces. So that's how we think about it. Arbor is taking foundational content. Maybe you did an interview, and now from that, all the branches or all the different things that you can make, whether that's clips or articles or pull quotes or social posts or newsletters. And so we want to allow content to grow.
Very cool. Very cool. And that's my fun. That would be then my last question for you. And we were talking pre-show around the power of story and obviously those whole and authenticity and content, and having your own identity, like from a founder, from an entrepreneur perspective, and then from obviously from a business perspective. I don't know what my question is around this. I guess for me, it's what am I trying to ask here? I've just lost my train of thought about it.
We were talking about having a personality and having the brand have a
Yeah.
personality, and is there a harmony to that? And obviously, the answer for me is yes. Like, I feel like my entire career has been a path to
Mm,
land here. And the reason is I've always kind of had these different lives. For the first decade of my career, I worked in finance. I was building trading systems at a large hedge fund, and that was extremely complex and very interesting, but it really required a transactional brain. And while I'm doing that, I was playing in rock bands, and
yeah,
I
that's
was doing storytelling instead of writing theater. And those two worlds never intersected. And so now we're working on a storytelling platform, right? So we
yeah,
get to do both things, which is just wonderful, where I get to talk AI and optimization and speed and having experts really meet their potential while also talking about narrative structure and story beats and tension and why something is engaging. And it's really cool to be able to unify all these parts. And so, in many ways, Arbor is a representation of the journey that I've taken as a professional, and it has all the personality that I'd say I'd bring
yeah,
into the conversation.
totally, totally. Oh, thank you so much for that. And you were good to pick up on where I was going with this. We spoke last time, and this is my final question for you. And your daughter had created her own business where she wanted an iPad,
Yes,
and so
yes,
I am
the
curious,
saga.
and everyone has to watch the first episode to understand.
Yes.
Like, I'm not giving it
I
all
think
away.
I
Yeah,
think it had just happened because I was so psyched about it. So 2 weeks later, we were flying to Colorado for a vacation, and I have this moment where I'm working on Arbor, and I look to the left, and she's working on Learn Layer, her
that's
new
right.
her new
Learn later.
idea. And an hour later, she taps me and she's like, "Dad, can I have more credits?" I'm like, "What?" She's like, "I'm out of credits." She's using Lovable. She's like, "Can I have more credits?" It's like, "I'm gonna lock in, Dad. Just a few more credits. I'm gonna lock in." So I take a photo of her and I wrote this fun LinkedIn post about it. But she finishes this app and she starts showing it to her school, and her teachers flip out. And she's getting to talk to everyone about how she's rethinking education. And I ask her, like, "What's your why?" And she's like, "Well, studying is so stressful. I want to find the joy in studying." And the platform was all about creating these engaging, fun ways to help you learn, whether it's through quizzes or flashcards. And that idea, kind of fast forward to last week, she comes home psyched, and I'm trying to finish an email, and she's like, runs over to me, taps on the computer, and like, what's going on? She's like, "I got a perfect score on history and I got 5 extra credits." I'm like, "Oh, that's amazing," because she's been struggling in like remembering history, and it was one of her goals is to improve her history grade. And I totally forget about like learning that. I'm like, "Oh, what did you do differently?" She's like, "I used my app." And
So
that beautiful like full
yeah,
circle moment.
I love
And
it.
just for a kid to feel that they have the agency to build a tool that improves their situation, that's such a profound feeling to have, that you can have
Agree.
an impact on your goals. You could build things, you can make things better. So I
And she's
hope that
creating
the
her own.
energy continues.
Yeah, and she's creating her own authentic story. Like, that's why I wanted to end up back
Yeah,
here, because at the end of the day, she's starting her own story, her own,
she
you've
is.
just talked around, this has built this whole life story has brought you to Arbor. This is the start of
Yes.
her little story, and it's very
I
cute. Oh
hope
my god,
so. Maybe I'll work for her one day.
she sounds like she's a go-getter. I'm like, she's gonna rule the world. I love it. Like, who knows?
That's it.
Like,
That's
oh,
our job.
yeah, totally right. Dimitri, so grateful for your time. I know that you have a lot on the go at the moment, and Arbor is obviously scaling big time. And so thank you so much. been quite the educational and conversational and intentional conversation around how do you ensure that you create that authentic content and how then you can scale it efficiently. So I'm sure the audience is going to take a lot out of this. And how do we find out more about Arbor?
Yeah.
And
So I'm on LinkedIn. I try to post at least weekly, and depends on how busy I get, but try to share my experiences without the AI slop.
yeah, same.
And our website, arborplatform.com.
Yeah,
So say
amazing.
hello.
Yeah, definitely. And I encourage everyone to do that. And I encourage everyone to remain authentic. It's not about the polish. It's like people want to see you for who you are and what you're all about. And I think that
I'll
more
leave,
than
I'll leave you on one very quick anecdote about that. Um, I was in Nashville, and they have this really awesome museum called the Musicians Hall of Fame. And it's all the songwriters and a bunch of the studios where forms of music like rock and roll were created. And so there's an interview from the guy who created, uh, I think it was called Sun Studios, like Elvis and all these folks recorded. And they said whenever they recorded an artist, they tried to push the song to the point of perfection, but right before, because as soon as it became perfect, it became boring. So they specifically did not want it to be perfect. They needed it to have flaws, because the flaws were where all the character came out.
yeah, very cool. It's so true though. It's so true. Everyone wants real. They want the flaws, the warts and all, everything. Yeah, amazing, Dimitri. I'm sure you're going to be up for quite a few hours still. So have a good rest of the evening, and thank you so
Sounds good.
much.
That's good.
Yeah, I can't wait to have you back on the show again in, I don't know, 12 months, end of the year, see where
I'll
everything's at.
continue my residency.
Yeah, for sure. Love it. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.